Hello and welcome to this mini video series on the ICSLand. So for context, because this is posted on a public channel, ICSLand is a board game that I've created for students, CERT Students, Community Emergency Response Team, to learn what it is to operate a command post. This board game, which is still experimental, has been used in the South Bay area of San Francisco, primarily in Sunnyvale, California. So this is a very small, short 3-video series where I want to present a few updates that have been made to the game in spring. So we're going to be covering 3 things. When we do the CERT curriculum in Sunnyvale, it is a 7 weeks program, and we follow the different units which are in the official CERT curriculum, which was, I believe, the latest update in 2019. The incident command system is covered in Unit 2, that is the second night. And the last night of the curriculum, we actually put that in practice using the board game, which I'm going to talk about. And we allocate about 2 hours to this session, and it also includes a recap of the incident command system, which I'm going to go through into this first video. So this first video is going to be the lecture on the recap on the incident command system, as well as an introduction for the game. So, and this is the content that is delivered to the students. The second video, which I'll be recording, it's a couple of new artifacts that were added to the game, ICSLand game. So this is mostly for the game master instructors in Sunnyvale who are going to be running games to see what is new in the game. And finally, which is also for the same audience but can actually be understood more broadly, I'm going to be walking through the complete scenario of the earthquake. So this is useful for potential instructors, future instructors, or existing one who basically need a refresh. So let's get into the what we call the ICS night at Sunnyvale. So I'm going to switch deck here. So let me leave this one. Here we go. And we're going to go into the lecture here. So let's get that one going full screen. Okay, so a few words about myself. So I did my CERT curriculum back in 2014. So that was class 39. We are at class 66 now in Sunnyvale. And about a year after I did the curriculum myself, I came back to the team and started to help volunteering, training other students. And I specifically focused on the incident command system and build that game. I've also built, in general, games to learn radios and more recently also a deck of cards for students to do recaps on first aid, on radios, on size up. So I'm kind of trying to make things more building artifacts which are inspired by games, so it is more fun for the students to learn some stuff. I do have certification around the ICS. I'm a tech guy, and I'm also my work, and I'm also a hammer radio operator. So anyway, fun disclaimer here, which I think it's pretty important nowadays. I have been using some AI to build this presentation, but I believe none of it was harm. So the program for this session. So, and again, this is what we introduce to our student during the night we cover the game. Is first section is a recap, and then it's an introduction to the game on how to play the game. So let's talk about the incident command system just a little bit. So the first thing to understand about the incident command system is to understand what are the objectives. So when there is a disaster or a large emergency event, the incident command system is a management structure that was designed to be able to help respond to this to incidents. Now, the primary objectives or goal, if you want, always the first one is to be safe and stay safe and to ensure safety. So before you go help others, you need to make sure that your own safety is guaranteed. And when you try to help others, obviously you want to do that in a very safe manner, so that you do not become part of the problem. Second concept is really trying to get the greatest good for the greatest number of people. So this will require some arbitrage. It will require some decision to be made. We will see that the important element is not necessarily what decisions are being made, but that they are made and they are documented. So when the first responder or the professionals arrive, you can hand over the situation. So again, we are here in the context of community emergency response team. The pattern you would usually use, and we will see that we sometimes call that the kind of the mini incident action plan or the guide that we apply is if you are in an emergency situation or an incident situation, first thing you want to do after you're safe and you have the objective of doing the greatest good for the greatest number of people is to first identify hazards. The reason why you want to do that is because you do not want to deploy more people before knowing where they can safely be deployed. There might be big holes somewhere, there might be a flood, there might be a down power line, so you want to identify hazards first in the area you are deciding to cover. Once you've done that and you know where you can go, you can actually start searching and treating victims. And obviously, you need to document what you do, so that when the professional arrives, you are prepared to not only report, but to do what we call a transfer of command. So hand over the situation with actually a very clear picture and view of that situation. So these are the objectives. Now, in order to achieve those objectives, we're going to see that there are two things. There's an organizational structure with different roles, and we're going to talk about these briefly. And there are a number of processes that this organization needs to implement. And the game will help you practice some of those processes, being in some of the roles. Now, this is straight out of the CERT Basic Unit 2 curriculum. So this is the org chart, if you want, of the key position in the incident command system. So at the top, you have the incident command, and now, there's debate in the community about that, but in the CERT curriculum, it sometimes refers a team lead. Now, in the implementation of ICS by the professionals, the leader, the team lead, is referred the incident commander. So we are going to be using the ICS terminology here. We're not going to be talking about team leads. Team lead will be more people that are in deployment team. So the head, if you want, of the organization is the incident commander. Now, the incident commander has 3 people in his command staff, a public information officer who primarily deal with the relationship with the public while the incident is happening, a safety officer, who will talk a little more about this role because it is implemented in the game. The public information officer is not, and the liaison officer. Liaison officer is a primary function is when you have multiple agencies. Maybe you have FEMA, maybe you have different departments that interact during the incidents. This is more used by the professional, so we are not going to cover this function in the game. Then there's a general staff, so which are the key leaders that will run different functions, operations, planning, and logistics, which are the 3 we are going to find in the ICSLand game. And then there are other functions that we're not going to detail here, but intelligence investigation is also one of the key functions in a fully fledged professional incident command system, and the finance and administration. So for simplification, we're not implementing those functions in the game. That could be in more future advanced version. But the core of addressing an incident here is going to be around safety officer, the incident commander, operations, logistics, and planning. So now that we understand the org chart, let's drill down one level into the different roles themselves. Now, I am going to cover at a very high level the different roles. Now, it is important to note that in the game itself, so I'm going to talk about the game a second here, you are going to have more detailed sheets with for each of the different roles. So here you have the incident commander, where you have the main responsibility, which we're going to cover in the slide, but you also have a little more details here on some of the aspects of the different elements. So these cards are available to the players, so they can have this while they are playing the game, and they can be used as a kind of a reminder of what is their function here. So let's look at them one by one. The first one, the incident commander, is obviously the head of the organization. So he or she is the person who is going to be managing the incident response. So that includes leading and delegating, so delegating tasks to all the different other functions. Primary goal is really to set the priorities and the goals and the objectives. Now, the second thing the important thing that the incident commander will oversee together with operations or the ops chief is the building of the incident action plan. Now, it is sometimes a little bit counterintuitive, because when you see the org chart, you would say, oh yeah, but no, planning should do the plan. There's a saying in the incident command system, which is the planning doesn't plan. The way the culture is and the way most professional organizations implement that is that planning, actually, we will see, is more responsible for facilitating, documenting, and maintaining the big picture. But when it comes to actually highlighting and deciding what needs to be done, it is in cooperation between the incident commander and the ops chief. And fundamentally, the incident commander gives a general direction and makes the top level decision or prioritization. But ultimately, what is important to also remember about the incident commander, that is the person who is accountable. So he's the person who said, oh yes, this is why we decided to do this, this is why we decided to do that. So he is ultimately the accountable individual in the incident command system. Let's talk about planning. So I said that planning doesn't plan, but planning is a very important role, again, in terms of maintaining the big picture. So keeping records and also facilitate communication between the different teams. Planning is kind of the guardian of the effectiveness of the team by making sure that everybody is in alignment. So the function include documenting and communicating, facilitating the plan development. So for instance, if planning found out that there's a misalignment with given new events of the plan and what should be done, he will easily, or she will call for, I see ops, we need another meeting to revise the plan because this doesn't work anymore. So there is the responsibility of kind of being the supervisor, making sure that the plan is up to date and the plan is documented and executed. Planning would also traditionally fill in the CAN report. We use a CAN report, so condition action needs. We'll talk about it in a future video in this mini-series. ICS itself has a more formal transfer of command process. There's a specific form called the ICS 201. We've stopped using this form because this form is a little bit complicated. And fundamentally, what you really want to know is you want to have a map where you represent the things you found. You want to have a description of the condition you are in at the moment of you are basically transferring the incident to professionals. You want to have the list of the action you've taken, and you have the list of the needs, the most immediate needs that you have. So it's a more simplified way to do a transfer of command, and usually it is the responsibility of planning to be prepared to create this report. And we actually create this report when we reach the end of the game, and we usually simulate a transfer of command. So you will be playing that during the game. Next section, which is one of the very important sections, obviously, is the operations. So operations are the doers or the executors. So as I said earlier, initially in the incident, ops will work, the chief of ops will work his DIC to define the plan. And once the plan is defined, it will be about executing, prioritizing the response tasks, so locating and treating problems, organizing and deploying teams, and also very important, setting up appropriate infrastructure. So you're probably going to find victims, so you need a place to put those victims, a medical treatment area. You might find a children or a child or children on their own, so you might have to set up a child center. You might find some pets, so you might have to create an animal shelter. So everything that is required to properly address the incident in terms of infrastructure is actually developed and operated by operations. Operations also has a responsibility to report progress and issues to the planning chief so that planning can keep this big picture. Now, we've covered some of the key functions. Now, logistic is obviously a very important element because if you don't have any resources, there is little you can do. So the role of logistic is to manage personnel, so log people in and out the overall system, but also allocate people to the different functions. So logistic will say we receive a number of volunteers or a number of resources, and we'll actually say, okay, with those guys, you go to logistics, you go to, sorry, operations, you go to DIC, you go to this, do this task or not. So it's really providing resources to the different other functions. And same things apply to equipment and supply. So the difference with equipment and supply is, equipment usually assets. If you have a ladder, a power generator, so things that are usually big and need to be tracked. And supplies are consumables, so gloves, water, those kind of elements. So it is important for logistics to maintain an inventory of that. And to be proactive if you started to see as a logistics chief that your water reserves are down, you might want to call operations to send a team to go retrieve more water or those kind of things. So there's a proactive element in making sure that you are always in a position to supply resources to the different other functions or sections. Now, one important function also, and you could argue that those four that we implement in the game are important, all equally important functions, is the safety officer. So safety officers is fundamentally responsible for or accountable for safety. So monitoring the environment and detecting unsafe activities, alerting and controlling. A good example of that would be, there's a heat wave coming. So then the role of safety will be go to across all different sections and make sure that there is enough water reserve. And also making sure that everybody uses their personal protection equipment correctly. And that they also implementation of the buddy system would be a good example as well. So overseeing the safety of the incident response is an element. Now, there's one last function we haven't covered, which actually was not even in the org chart, because it is a support function and it can apply to any other section, which is the scribe. So the scribe are really assistant to the incident commander or to the chiefs or to the different officers, and they really make a difference by being here to document and to track details. So it's fundamentally a support role, and it's really about being the person that will capture all the details and will keep everything written down and organized. So the scribe are usually very important functions. You will see that, good example of that during the game. So we've covered the different functions and the different roles and the org chart in the incident command system, and this is usually covered at least to certain level in the Unit 2 of the CERT curriculum. What is not really clearly highlighted, and which I've figured out is actually important if you implement a command post, is the different processes. So I'm just going to give you a list and an example of processes. You will practice most of them once you start playing the game, but it is something interesting to have in mind and to think about when it comes to the incident command system. So the first process you're going to go through is actually deploying ICS, the incident command system, on your own, and you'll be guided during the game. And what that means is that you are going to get organized and actually decide who is getting with what role and what functions, what sections. So there's a process for that in itself, and we will walk you through that. The second process is the creation of the incident action plan, which to some extent you can see is a form of size up. We will look into that into details. It's applying size up to the incident from a command post perspective. So it's really about analyzing the situation, making a plan, executing, documenting, and cycling through the plan as new event happened. Resource management is going to be a very important process. We will talk about it into more details. So that includes, from a logistics standpoint, managing people, but that also includes at each section level managing the span of control. So if you realize that in your section, let's say in logistics, in the beginning you have a lot of stuff coming in, you might actually need more people to track inventory or to check in people. So you might want to expand the size of the logistic department. And once you've gone through the first, influx of resources, you might actually contract it. So the concept of span of control exists as a process as well. Dealing with the media is another example of process. I think it was covered in the Unit 2 of the curriculum. Documenting is a process, and the transfer of command. So once you've done running the command post as a team, and you want to transfer that actually either to another team, if the professionals are not coming yet, but you've been running that for a number of hours, you might want to have another team do that. So this is a process of transferring command through the development of a specific report, and we use the CAN report in this example. So again, it's important not only to have in mind, there are roles and functions, but there's also processes that needs to be implemented. Now, that was the recap of the incident command system. Now we're going to be looking at the board game itself and see how you are going to play the game. So ICSLand is a board game, and it actually, the idea started when I did my own CERT training almost 10 years ago right now. We used to do a complete drill in Sunnyvale DPS, it was a kind of 2-3 hours exercise where some of the students were selected to be in the command post and running the command post, and the other student will be the deployment team, and they will run into the fire tower here, which is an exercise fire tower at Sunnyvale DPS Station 2, and there will be victims everywhere in the building with a moulage or wounds, and those victims needed to be found and treated and brought back and created a medical treatment area. So I was lucky enough to be the planning chief for this exercise. And when I came back to help and mentor and participate into training more CERT students, I realized that not everybody during that exercise would have the chance or the opportunity to have a role in the command post. And I wanted to find a way so that everybody could experience it. And this is how the idea of the game was created. So just want to give a credit to two ladies here, Jasmine and Anna. Jasmine is still helping us at Sunnyvale DPS. Anna has moved along, but initially in the games they jumped in and they had me do the first version that you see with the brown cardboard, and then there was another version which was a little nicer. And now you will see that there is a more professional looking version, although it is still experimental. The game is not mass produced or commercialized yet. So what is the game? The way it works, so it's organized around the scenario. So the current scenario we use is called the disaster scenario we use is called the quake. So it's an earthquake. We'll see how that materializes in a second. And it's not a board game that you play standalone. It's a board game where there is a coach or a game master or an instructor if you want. So it's more kind of a Dungeon and Dragon. So there is one person driving the game, and the players execute under the direction of that person. So each game set, you have 5 to 9 players plus a coach or a game master here. Now on this slide you can see, so there are 3 boards. There is one board on the left for planning. In the middle, you have one board for the incident commander and for operations. And you can see that the board for operations, you actually have it's written upside down, but you have a section for deployed teams. So this is where you are actually going to put cards that represents your teams and the resources in these teams. I will show you in a moment how that works. There's a staging area. So if you have a personnel that you're not using, that is not deployed, you can basically stage them here. And then you have the logistics side, which is the same thing. You have all your equipment and supplies here. We will see how equipment and supplies materialize in the game. And there's also a section for personnel here. So this is how we organize the boards on a table to play. And around, we will position the different players. So what I'm going to ask you players at this moment on each of your table is to lay out the boards the way you see them on screen and clear up the table. You're not going to need anything but a pen or a pencil. So you can have your drinks if you want, but be careful. There's a very limited number of game sets, and they have been produced in a very small batch, so they are pretty expensive to replace, very expensive to replace. So be careful, please, on all the game artifacts. Don't write on them. Try to keep them as clean as possible. So don't take a position yet. Taking a position will be part of the game, and be prepared to position yourself around the board. Now, once you have once you will be around the board game here, I'm going to show you some of the artifacts. You can see that there's an event box here, and this is where the game master is actually going to drive the game with you. So what's going to happen is that the game master is going to start dropping cards into this inbox. So for example, you have this card here, which is the quick scenario. So this card will give you the summary of the situation. So it's an earthquake. So, and when you pay, you will see that as well. So that's the first card. You can learn about the incident. The second card will be get organized. So this is when you are going to say, okay, who is the IC? We decide to find who is the IC. So then the IC takes his position in front of the IC board game. Then you're going to receive a number of documents. So you're going to receive a note card about that. So this idea where your cards are dropped into the inbox, and usually the IC look at the card first and decide who should process the card, and then you process the cards. So that's the first thing that is important to play the game. Now, we said earlier that you are going to be you are not going to do any deployment here. You are going to use this deploy team section to simulate that you're sending team in the field. And the way you're doing that is you are going to use another set of cards. So you do have cards in your game sets which are field action cards. So these cards actually, some of them are predetermined. So for example, you have a card for a quick hazard survey. Others are not. They are customed. We'll see how we use them. You have a damage assessment card, a search and rescue triage card, medical treatment area card. So the ones that are predetermined are pretty easy. The ones which are not, what you basically do is that you take this card, you take a post-it note, and you put the post-it note here, and you will write down what this field action is about. So in this case, it's a child care center. So you have cards here that represent actions. Now you need to put resources on those cards. And there are two types of resources. There are people. These are the blue cards. So those people have names. So you have Match, you have Data, you have Marty and Lorraine. The characters come from a very famous movie. I'm pretty sure you'll figure out what it is. And then you also have resources cards, which are the gray cards, so equipment and supply cards. And they could be a number of things. So you have fire extinguishers, you have a wrench, you have control tape. So depending on what is the action, you are going to say, well, it's a child care center. I'm going to put, 2 people here, and I might put a fire extinguisher in case something bad happened. And once you have this card, you will simulate, okay, I'm doing this action, and you put it on the board. So if we flip back to the main desk here, you put it on the board, and you've deployed your team. So depending on the conditions, you are going to do those field actions, put them on the board, and once the card is on the board, all you have to do is wait. And at some point, the game master will take the card and say, oh, this happened, and you will have to do something else about it. I'll give you a more practical example. The first thing you are going to do is you are going to do a quick hazard survey. So you are going to go around the neighborhood with this card, and you're going to send probably 2 people to have a look at what's going on. Are there any hazards in the neighborhood? So you're going to put this card again on the board and wait. A few minutes later, the game master is going to take this card and say, well, here is the report that this team that you sent has written. And this will obviously go back to operation. So operation will take this report, look at this report, and process the information in this report. So this is how you play the game. You receive events, either report cards or something happening during the game here, like, what are your objectives? And based on those cards, you do things, and they trigger reaction and things from the game master. So that's the very top level highlight on how the game works. Moving on, the first thing you are going to do when you start the game here is you are going to choose a team name. And then the first card, I showed you a few of them already, will be helping you discover the incident, getting organized, so assigning different roles, understanding the documentation. You are going to get a complete set of documentation, which is going to be here. So I just flash it for a second, but you will see it during the game. So, and you have different forms that go to different people. So you have to use that. Select a location for your command post. You will see that there's a map to help you track that. And then you're going to start building your plan. And as you have your plan, you're going to execute the plan, manage the priorities, adjust the plan, do the different actions. And when we said, oh, time's up, time's down for the game, you will be preparing a transfer of command. And at that time, the planning chief will write the CAN report and we'll do a transfer of command. So we'll see how you do that. So that's the way it's going to work tonight. Now I'm going to transfer that to each table and each instructor. Just a couple of things here before we actually get started is you are going to be, your coach will actually spend some time showing you how to manage resources, because you are going to see that you are going to receive people, you are going to receive supplies, everything first go to logistics, then things go to the different section. There's a whole set of forms that you need to, a set of process that you need to follow in terms of making sure that you manage those resources properly and effectively. So we will keep this slide on display, but your coach will help you do that. Final thing is do not write on any game artifacts. If you want to put something on the board, use post-it notes. Again, as I said, the sets are very limited and they're very important. And I'm going to transfer now to the game masters, and we're going to start playing the game. So this is the deck I used to introduce the game night for ICSLand. What we also usually do, just to finish up here, is when I finish the pitch, I actually keep the following slide on display, which is basically the simplified incident action plan. So which reminds the players that, you know, the sequence is that first you do a quick hazard survey to identify hazards and make sure that you know where not to send people. Then you do a first neighbor damage assessment where you will figure out where there are potentially people that need to be helped. Then you will start, based on that, you prioritize and you will start sending teams to do that search and rescue, which probably will lead you to create a medical treatment area. And depending on what happened during the game, which is going to be detailed more into the third video, you will have to react and adjust the plan. So that's the end of this first video. I hope it was helpful for game masters and for those of you who are completely new to ICSLand to get a little bit of a feel of what the game is. And I thank you very much for your attention here.